And here we are with our next session about automating EUDR compliance. So taking off most of the manual compliance work and really integrating EUDR into your operations. And I'm very happy to have a great speaker for this topic on board, which is Mark from Westernacher. Wait, let me get you on stage. Really quick. So Mark is a global lead business and planning and analytics at Westernacher. He heads the Competence Center of Sustainability, helping companies worldwide drive sustainable digital transformation and build robust sustainability data foundations. And he is very qualified to talk about how to automate EUDR compliance. Thank you for being with us today, Mark.
Thanks, Andreas. And yeah, thanks for having me today. Let me start sharing my screen with you.
And I will move off stage. See you later. It's yours.
Thank you. Okay. So, yeah, thanks for having me today and thanks for joining this session. My session is about how to automate EUDR compliance, and how to make sure that the relevant data that you need from your supply chain is actually then available in tools like LiveEO. In case you do not know Westernacher, yet, let me share just a few information for you so that you get a better picture about us. Westernacher is relatively old, meanwhile, more than 55 years old, founded close by to where SAP was founded. And we are now more than 1,200 people worldwide, located in 26 countries, and we have our background in SAP consulting, have a very strong focus in supply chain, but so to say, over the years, really have expanded across all process areas, doing really end-to-end consulting and advisory, and really try to support every customer across industries in really getting the best out of their processes and really facilitating everything they need to do. It's very important for us that we are a reliable partner for our customers, and of course that we live to our values of entrepreneurial spirit, integrity, and that we act responsibly, which of course includes also the area of sustainability. That is core of our DNA, that we really want to improve and give back, so to say, to society by helping companies in improving their business and also acting in a more sustainable way. We have been now, since more than 4 years, also carbon neutral. And for me as a global lead for sustainability services, of course, it's close to my heart that we act on this. What do we do? Well, actually, everything from, so to say, creating a strategy, defining your architectural setup, doing sustainability assessments, up to the design, how to do this, really how to shape and design your processes, up to the implementation, training, testing, and then also the continuous improvement of these. With regards to our sustainability services, we have started more than 5 years ago on this, focusing a lot on the SAP Sustainability Suite, have done several projects, are acting actually globally, not only in Europe, but also in the US and also in Asia on this. And as you can see here, we really integrate sustainability into each of our company's core processes. Because for us, sustainability is located everywhere, especially also, of course, in supply chain, but also in ERP processes. And therefore, we really see this as an integral part of all our services, that we include sustainability there and support our customers. Having said this, just a last glimpse on what we are actually doing as sustainability services. So we do everything with regards to strategy and enterprise architecture, but of course, we also look into the regulatory aspects and the compliance aspects. And so really, what frameworks do you need to follow? How should you interpret these frameworks? And how do you prepare for these? But then for sure, we go into also the optimization of supply chains, of production processes, decarbonization, to really bring this to the next level of not only following regulations, but also improving the overall sustainable aspect, and also connecting this with processes like finance and planning on this to really get the best out of it. EUDR, well, as you are with the EUDR summit here from LiveEO, you should be well aware what EUDR is about. So actually, I do not spend too much on this, but for sure, one thing that is probably well aware to you is EUDR is very impactful. It goes across so many products, derivatives, semi-finished products, and it also comes with a lot of implications if you do not follow this. So up to 4% of annual turnover, which is of course something which companies should take seriously. There's one part, the information requirements, the other one is the risk assessment part. And in this case, with the information requirements, of course, it all boils down to how do I get this data? Where do I find this relevant data in order to prepare my due diligence statement so that I can prove, well, we did all necessary with regards to backtracking and creating this transparency. And on the other hand, of course, also being able then to do the risk assessment. And when you look at the relevant data that is needed for this, if you look into a standard SAP process, then we have the purchase to pay process here, and where was the purchase requisition, you are not impacted yet. But then as soon as you go into the purchase order, and the goods received, then you actually start entering the EUDR space. And that is where you get relevant information and need to act, first of all, with a risk assessment of your supplier, that is already connected with the purchase order. Here you already need to look into, is the selected supplier actually following EUDR principles? And then when you receive the goods, then this transparency goes into okay, where do the individual goods that are now received, where did they come from? Is that something where we have a DDS statement already in place? Do I import now? I need to create a DDS statement. Do I have all relevant information in place to create this DDS? So that is where it already starts trickling in. The last part of the purchase to pay process is then the actual payment and the invoicing part. That is where you again have nothing to do with in the EUDR process. So for you to take with you is that with regards to the purchase order and the goods received and all the processing, so to say, this is where you have relevant EUDR relevant aspects. If we now go a bit deeper into it, we should look at the master and transaction needed, data needed for fulfilling EUDR and being compliant. And with regards to SAP, there are basically two components in the master data. One is the business partner. So that is where you have your suppliers and customers in. And then, of course, you need to look into the material master data. So the business partner, at the end, is the information where you need to look at when you do your risk assessment. where you really need to look at how is the individual vendor fulfilling the requirements according to EUDR. With regards to material master data, that is the individual product that you receive from your vendor, and that is where you need, so to say, to include the information that you receive there. That is very important. Then you have your transactional data, and with regard to your transactional data, you have basically 3 big aspects that you need to look at. EUDR compliance starts as soon as you have an inbound delivery. So as soon as you gain ownership of your inbound products, semi-finished products, derivatives according to EUDR, you, so to say, need to pick up this transparency with regards to EUDR. I need to track this. And then what comes in place there is the batch management, because of course you will not certainly receive each and every individual component, but you will receive that in batches. And then for each batch, you need to make sure that you have the DDS information in place so that you can attach this later on to your own DDS statement and get this, so to say, confirmed by the EU traces system. And then this is already the handover to the outbound delivery. That is, so to say, when all the different incoming components come together, where you get from all your different vendors the individual DDS information, combine this into your DDS for your finished product, submit this to EU traces, and then get your DDS number back from it. So that are the components that you in your ERP system need to look for in order to become compliant with EUDR. How does this now look in a bit more detail? Because that was still a very high level, and now we go, let's say, on a system level down, how that actually looks like. And what I've drawn here is with an SAP ERP system, SAP S/4HANA, and then the integration with TraceAware by LiveEO, how that actually works. So let's assume, first of all, you have, so to say, you look at your supplier, which in your S/4HANA system is your business partner. And here you get the information. And then what happens is that you share this information via the business technology platform from SAP. And I will come to that, what that means. That is the SAP integration suite, which you can use to integrate with other systems. So the business technology platform is an overarching platform that enhances SAP capabilities, and also provides as one feature of it also integration with other systems. And that is what it will do then with TraceAware by LiveEO. Yes, there's also an option to do it with an REST API. So in case you wonder and you don't have SAP integration suite in place, so you can also do it with that. But certainly, let's say the path via SAP integration suite is a bit smoother and is, of course, also scalable, because you will then also be able to run not only the TraceAware integration, and that works very nicely. So the business partner or your individual supplier, the information will go out via the SAP integration suite, business technology platform, and then will go into the supplier onboarding, in TraceAware, but of course will also go into the status. So here we also have the TraceAware customer that goes on and looks into, okay, what supplier status do I have here? And for sure, it will also then go into the risk assessment for the individual supplier. Then this is, so to say, the risk assessment part of Article 10 and 11 of EUDR. Then we have the Article 9 which is about the information requirements, and that is where your inbound process, so where the purchase order and the goods received come into place, and then of course also your outbound transactions, so sales order, goods issue. Again, this will also be shared with TradeAware by LiveEO, to create then your DDS statement, and that is where the integration by LiveEO comes into place with EU traces, where LiveEO will submit a combined DDS to the EU traces system. That will be, oh, sorry, I forgot the laser pointer. This information will then be validated within the EU traces system, and a new DDS statement, once confirmed, a new DDS ID will be created that is then backtracked again to LiveEO. And of course, this information is also then going back into your S/4HANA system from SAP to make sure that later on you can also connect this again to your individual sales order goods issue. So that is where you have the deep integration back, and this is where how the architecture would look like. I already mentioned that. Let me just go back to. I already mentioned that the business technology platform, actually the SAP integration suite, would take care of the integration. And I don't want to go into too much detail. It can become very technical. So for those of you that are interested, please reach out to me. But in general, this is a quick overview, so to say, of what SAP's integration suite is about. It has an event-driven architecture. It can really integrate with basically any application. Has built-in APIs that are available, and as you can see, there are many use cases that you can use the SAP integration suite for, to really connect and make this accessible. In many cases where you have SAP ERP system in place with an S/4HANA system, customers usually have anyway integration needs with other systems like a document system or other systems where they need to integrate with custom apps, third-party apps, partners, and therefore it makes sense that if you have integration suite in place, that you use this, especially as it is really a well-known standard that is very secure and scalable, and you can basically then also start using this for the future for many other scenarios where you need perhaps to access similar data again. And that actually leads me to an aspect that many companies do not have, so to say, on their radar, is that, of course, the EUDR purpose is very important, and companies need to follow this, but there's more to it, and more also in the processes within your company that you should be looking at, because what I assume you see that also as well, more and more regulations are coming your way. So it's EUDR is one, you have probably CSRD, you might have CBAM, CSDDD, Digital Product Passport, then you probably have aspects around product compliance, and all of these regulations are already in place. So this is just, so to say, the regulatory part, and then you have aspects for your internal data information system, where you would like to actually run analytics on to identify, well, how can I optimize my processes? How can I include this triangle of operational excellence, financial excellence, and sustainable excellence? All of this usually is something which is very complex to handle for companies. Especially that companies many times basically only react to upcoming regulations and then start, so to say, scrambling together data, doing this perhaps in an Excel sheet, Excel spreadsheet, or I don't know, Microsoft Access databases. So try to, so to say, create individual platforms where specific data is available. Our recommendation in that case is that you start working on building a common sustainability data layer, a data foundation that really takes data and data products from individual systems. Yeah. Now I've depicted here an S/4HANA system as an ERP system, might be also a non-SAP system, of course, might be also other source systems like your production system, MES system, yeah, CRM information, systems from your supply chain, yeah, for transportation management, warehouse management, yeah, procurement tools that you have. So connecting all this to a common data foundation, a data layer as depicted here, that, so to say, acts as the one common virtualization of data where you then can build individual cases on to fill your requirements. And in that case, it could be, for example, that you have a product carbon footprint tool, yeah, that takes data from this data foundation, yeah, for CBAM purposes or for the digital product passport. Or you have and need to comply also with CSRD. And of course, there it would make a lot of sense if you would have this one common integrated data foundation where you could pick from HR data, yeah, sustainability data, governance data, all this really having, so to say, in a proven data layer available. And for sure, there are more regulations coming up your way, but you could also use this for sure, sharing this with your own customers, because we also see that many of our customers are actually getting more and more requests that their customers actually ask for sustainability data or other information, yeah, before they actually pick their vendors. And that is, of course, something which comes on top of your data requests next to regulations and the internal requests for data that also the customer's data are now requested. And for this, it makes sense to really build up this data layer. So how would we usually approach this? And that is also the last slide of my presentation. Then I would be very happy to have your questions. So overall, what really makes sense is to identify what is the scope that you want to focus on. Yeah, is it something for specific regulations? Does it make sense to already define this on a broader base? Yeah, that it is also kind of future proven. Yeah, so really defining the architecture. Then it is very important to understand, where do I get my data from? So how does this data acquisition look like? What are the core systems? What are the core processes delivering to this? The next part is that we need to look at assurance. Yeah, so for sure, if reports, regulatory information, yeah, as part of your annual report or in other reports are shared, this data needs to be correct and fully compliant, complete. So we need to make sure that this is the case and that all aspects are covered. Yeah. And then once this is given and you have all this relevant data identified and prepared, then you can put your analytics and steering on top of it. So really making sure that you also track these KPIs, define targets on this, and then make this available that you can disclose and report on them. Yeah. And when you have run through such a cycle, you will see that for new regulations or new requests, you will be far better equipped to really go into the details and work on it. So with that, I would come to a close of my presentation, and I would be very happy now to take any questions that you have.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have 4 minutes left, so let's see how many questions we squeeze in, and I will just ask away. So one interesting question is, can an order be automatically or manually blocked or stopped in SAP when the due diligence process reveals that EUDR relevant order is not compliant after the order has been placed?
After the order has been placed, well, let's say the big question is, when do you get that information? Yeah. So if you, so to say, get relevant information only with a shipment notice, yeah, when you receive the incoming material, of course, then it's a bit late. Usually, of course, what you would do is that you already do the risk assessment of your supplier up front, yeah, and then also have a risk score in place, like LiveEO also delivers, where you already get a recommendation saying, well, that is fairly safe to move forward, or you get a high risk score where you should then actually pay more attention to, and then also ask upfront for extra information to really identify and assess. So if that is the case, yes, certainly also SAP is able to block this.
I think I saw this also somewhere where, in the questions, if there's a bottleneck for getting the supplier data, and it's absolutely bottleneck, you should try to get the supplier data as much in advance as possible to ensure automation, smooth process.
Yes.
The top voted question was, what if a company does not have a batch management in place? Does it still work?
Well, let's say yes, it can work, but that is something which usually is quite complicated to do. We have done some projects in this area. I would be happy to discuss this more in detail with you, but certainly batch management is usually, so to say, a key requirement also to reflect this.
Okay. Then another question, does the system support the passing down of the DDS number and token to your customers when these customers do not have and will not have any such system?
Not automatically. I mean, yes, you could basically also, of course, set up something like a work stream. Yeah. For example, again, in the SAP Business Technology Platform, there are ways to automate this. Yeah, where you can constantly, basically, once a DDS is submitted, or other way around, once you received, so to say, your DDS ID from EU traces, that you can already push this out, so to say, to your customer, this information.
Put it,
So
for example, on the invoice or something would be possible.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, 1 minute. Let's be super quick. Okay, maybe because of the top voted question, at what number of DDS per year does it make sense to connect the supply chain software? It's a fairly general question, but maybe your view.
Yeah. I think I would not have a specific number for you. Let's say, I think it is very relevant to see, depending on how much workload is also created. Yeah. So we see that very early already, if you have multiple production sites, yeah, perhaps multiple entities in your organization with multiple vendors, it easily aggregates up, right? So have a look at how many sites do you have, how many vendors do you have, yeah, for individual products that you also look at. And depending on this, you should take this decision. If you're only talking with, I don't know, fixed 5 vendors, well, I think it's not such a big deal. But usually this is kind of something in flex, right? You are changing vendors, you have multiple sites. These vendors you perhaps have just selected. So I would actually recommend you to go for that, unless you see that you can actually handle that pretty well by yourself.
Okay, perfect. Slightly over time, but I think that's fine. So thank you so much, Mark, for the insightful presentation and for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
If you want to stay on, you can just stay in the room as usual. I will end the session, and thanks for joining this one.